Oh no. Nick, I don't know if you can hear me, but I sure can't hear you.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. All right. Technical difficulties. I lost audio, and so I knew that my audio on my computer was working, so I closed the browser tab. When I got back in, Restream literally doesn't let you back into streams once you leave them. And so I'm literally watching you guys talk about how you don't have anything like to do with stream. So I'm going to be writing Restream in a little nastygram after this. But yeah, sorry about that. I didn't even mean to end your stream. It just there's a big glowing red button that said enter live studio. I'm like, okay, great. I'll enter live studio. And then of course it ended our previous stream, because I guess you can only have one simultaneous stream. So,
all right, I was basically the animated live stream version of that little test pattern that comes up when the TV doesn't work. I don't know if that's just too old nowadays, but you know, it's like a monkey with a wrench looking at a broken satellite dish with like scratching his head. That was me for 10 minutes.
Or like the Twitter fail whale.
Oh yeah, good times. Take me back to 2012 right there.
More recently, I joked that Notion, if you guys are Notion users, Notion's 404 page should just be the fail snail, because it's the slowest technology on the face of the planet. Anyway,
yeah.
What did I block you guys on doing? Where do we pick up?
So I was just kind of going through like what I'd answered some questions. So William's questions that he had typed out are answered. I kind of discussed, you know, some options for the breakpoint PWA stuff with him, and you know, we'll close that circle somewhere else. But so don't worry about the chat being lost. I was able to address all that before we got cut off, and then I was about to just kind of explain where we kind of saw this feature going before I got more into previewing what it actually is, because it's very difficult to discuss versus see.
Yeah, I mean, so like as a time check, like we have a little less than a half an hour left in like our time block for live streaming, and so I don't know what you think, Patrick. Like, you know, in the spirit of like doing it live, if we want to kind of like mess around with something, it's be like where we like how far we can push this feature.
Yeah,
that would be super fun to see. You know, debugging some of this stuff live if you're comfortable.
No, I kind of like, I think we kind of reached the limit of the timer. I was going to just show what was going on with the timer, and then my goal next was to see if I can't play around with Expo location, and then see if we just can't get my location to pop up. I'm not sure where that'll go. It might be a failure. It may be that the iOS simulator does not like sharing its location, which would be a reasonable expectation of them. So, but it would be interesting to see what happens with that. So that's where I was going to take it next.
That would be cool. Otherwise, we can always do Old Faithful. We all scan live preview with our phones and kind of like point them at.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll get my phone ready then. Yeah, it's like I continue to make fun of my parents for taking computer screenshots with their phone, but you know, sometimes it's the best way.
It's the best way.
All right.
Okay, yeah. So you're gonna finish off this timer demo, and then we can go into that stuff.
Yep. So let me show you what the completed app is very quickly, and kind of show you the pieces of it. And now let me just check the time here. So I'll try to end this around 11:06, just so we have some time to actually play with the software. So, and Nick, please feel free to remind me if I go over. All right.
While you're doing this, I'm going to literally go through the social channels and make sure people know who we can go over.
All right. Okay, so this is as big as I can make this, unfortunately. But yeah, so this is what the final product would look like. So you might have noticed when you were looking in the builder, you wouldn't have been able to see these buttons, because these buttons come from the custom code. And it's not complicated code. It's the button component that we provide out of our Draftbit UI library. And it's wired up to a single function each. And they essentially just start a timer. This isn't very complicated in terms of its functionality, but it is something that you aren't able to do in Draftbit right now, and you know, it's the first step towards getting there. So you know, we've got complicated stuff here. So we're just counting up. Start button, you know, able to disable that so that people can't start while they've already started, and then stop it whenever you want, and then you can reset it. And this is a little bit of a preview of the local storage. now there is a little string of, well, we took a time on this date at this time, and it was 13 seconds long. And if we start it again, stop it again, reset it again, we have a way of clearing that history, which I'm not going to do because I do want to preview something. So if I were to close this app, so let me see if this all works. Great. And as an Android user, you're going to have to bear with me as I attempt to use an Apple phone, not only live, but on a simulator on my computer. Luckily, I have a touchpad, but it's kind of difficult. So going back in, so normally in a Draftbit app, what I've just done is I've shut down Expo, I've shut down the app, and that would have cleared all what we call the state of the app, right? All those times you had stored and saved would all have gone because they were only stored in memory in the application. And so when the application is closed, those electrons go away and you no longer have that data. With the async storage local storage library, that's actually saved to the device's memory. So here, now that you reopened it, you'll see that now those times are still there, which is kind of the cool power of async storage. It kind of adds some permanence. And this is also super useful, despite the trivial kind of use I have here as an example, for storing authentication tokens. So if you want to sign in users, you can sign them in, store that token to the local storage, and then send it back out in your request to authenticate the requests to your server, kind of keeping things login only, essentially. If the user hasn't logged in, those will fail. So clear history here, and this is kind of the end of that demo. So looks like we're doing OK on time. So back to the builder. Let's see if we can't get some location stuff working. So I'm just going to share my screen again. And Nick, feel free to jump in here, and I'm on as well, just with questions. I know I'm about to go into engineer brain, so I'm not going to talk as much. And I might do things that are confusing, so I apologize in advance if that's true.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that jumps to my mind immediately is like local storage is such a powerful thing to have, because not only can you store state, but also it allows you to do things like authentication, because you can store the the user session in the device. Like what other things are should we get us excited about what other things you can do with local storage once you have access to this?
Oh man, the possibilities, I think, somewhat become endless. So I think one of the most straightforward things you could do would be like a notes app, right? Like that's something that if you didn't have a server, it really just enables a whole gamut of what I'd consider offline experiences, right? So if you wanted to build an app that allowed you to take notes in it right now, you could not use a server to store those notes. You could just store them store on the local storage. And that would work regardless of whether you had an internet connection, and you wouldn't have to worry about how to use a backend server service or any of that stuff. It just keeps the loop of data between, inside your phone. So for privacy reasons, for whatever, that's, I think, one of the cooler things you could do, and really any sort of offline thing. So we stored simple text strings in that example. It gets a little bit more complicated to store something like an image, and there are some constraints to local storage about how much data you can store that I know exists, but I don't quite know what they are. So you couldn't store an unlimited stuff with this API. We'd have to move to more advanced things. But theoretically, you could store small images, text, really just anything that. Carts, maybe, if you're building a little shopping app, like what the cart is, basically anything you don't want to forget, right? But maybe not something that you want to send to the server. So I think there's a lot of different use cases for that. There's almost so many that it's difficult to pull out any one.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So let me go back to my overview here, and let's start a new app. So can we locate ourselves? And we'll start with the blank app here. Great. So let's get a little bit of color in our world just to have something small here.
There's a great like dad joke in here about like finding yourself, and you really need an app for that.
As I still think Draftbit's newest dad, I'll let you make the dad jokes. So let me go here, grow this div. All right, great. And just something too that like a little tip about building React Native apps, which is I always recommend to stay away from this panel, size and width and height. Sometimes you just have to use it, but if you can build your app using Flexbox, you will be building your app to adapt to a wide variety of device sizes, tablets, mobiles, every different form factor that comes with Android, every different form factor that comes with iOS, because Flexbox does a good job of readjusting itself in response to different widths. Whereas percentages and the heights can get a little funky depending on what you're looking at. But so quick tip for the people out there. And we're going to add a code component right in the middle of this guy.
By the way, Aman wrote a wicked good guide to Flexbox that lives on tutorials.draftbit.com. So definitely
awesome.
That if you want to learn more Flexbox.
Yeah, and so we're going to set the content again using Flexbox. I'm just going to get this guy. I want him to be in the, oops, it's actually the wrong thing. Content, I want it to be in the center. And I want it to be, there we go. Okay, so we're just going to have a little box in the middle of this page here, and let's get started. So right now, I'm just going to, and I guess I'll just call this my location. And we won't pass it anything, so this is about as simple as JSX can get. It's just you call a component, you don't pass it any data, and you let it handle 100% of what it's supposed to do. So we're going to save that. And then we're going to go into our custom functions. So just to test kind of what we were doing, and then I'm going to import a text component. React Native, and then I'm going to do, so a critical thing when you're working with custom code components like this is to make sure that whatever you want to actually use in your app, you start with export. So, and just to show you a different way of writing these than before, you know, you can write functions multiple ways in Draftbit or in JavaScript, and so this is just another way of writing a function. Which is what did I call this? My location. And we're going to do, just again to test and make sure everything's working as expected, we're going to show a text component and we're going to say hello. Proofread that a little bit. All right. So you won't see anything here, but because this is a pretty harmless component, we're going to go over and preview on Snack and see if that doesn't come over on Snack, and I believe it should. Yeah, so here we are. So not very well styled. You know, styling, all those things are up to you with custom code components. But as you can see, we're showing my little hello message over from custom code. So that's great. It's a good way of testing your things out. So now what I want to do is I want this to be a location. So I'm going to just define a variable for the location for now, called location, and just set it to hello again for now, just to kind of save. So this is an example of how you can show a variable using JSX. It's not going to be very exciting because it's going to do the exact same thing, unless I mess up, which happens quite a bit. So, all right, great. So, oh, the quotes went away because complicated reasons you don't have to know, but that's good. All right, so what I want to do now is try to find a way to replace this location variable with something that the location that we read from the device. And frankly, I've never actually done this with Expo, so I'm going to just take you on the engineer adventure involving searching for solutions to your problems. So get location. All right, here, that looks relevant. And I'm just going to start reading. So one of the few things I'm going to notice here, and I'll just show you how I would look through this too, if I were you, is in the installation, you're going to see this a lot, especially with Expo's documentation, excuse me, and it's going to show you how to install a package that supports it. And that's how we use the packages feature that I showed you earlier. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add a new package called Expo Location, and I'm going to have it install the latest, which is what generally we suggest. There's reasons you'd want to pick different versions, and we're just not going to go into that now. All right. So you won't see a lot of change here because all that does is load it up and send it over to Expo and tell them we're getting ready to use it. And so now I'm going to go read some more. So again, I've never done this before, so forgive me while I go do some read. Nick, if you want to do some more dad jokes or patter at this point, it'd probably be a good thing. And I'll interrupt you once I kind of figure out where I'm going with this.
Jokes don't. I think the thing about jokes, the dad jokes, they don't come on.
You don't have a type 5 you can give me?
I would say so. We do have one question in the chat that I'll
address.
So Mohan on the YouTube channel asks if we feel that Expo PWA is really slow, yeah, I mean, Mohan, I guess send us your the URL to your PWA and we can have a look. But some common things that like Expo PWA should not be slow. So the answer is if you're experiencing some slowness, we'd love to help you figure out why that's the case. Some possible reasons why your PWA could be slow. One could be if your images are really large. So if you're loading a bunch of images on a page and they're all a couple of megabytes each, that's going to slow down your experience dramatically. And whether that's, loaded, if it's a static images that are in your app or if they're loaded from the server, if the payloads that you're loading from the server are really big, so maybe you have like a list with 100 items and you're not truncating it, or maybe you're loading some really heavy images or videos from the server, that's going to slow down your app. Also check your internet connection, especially because your PWA is all browser-based, like it's going to feel a little bit slower potentially than a native app if you're because it's running in the browser as opposed to running natively. So if your internet connection is slow, in conjunction with those other things I mentioned, those are also reasons why your PWA can feel slow. So definitely check out all of those. It sounds like sometimes in these live streams, it's hard to know if you're talking about as a Draftbit user or if you're using Expo yourself outside of Draftbit. But assuming you are a Draftbit user, just send us a message and we'll try to help you figure out. Oh, cool. So you're saying gotcha, images are the culprit, not the internet. Okay, so yeah.
Don't feel bad about that. We make that mistake constantly.
Yeah.
Even as engineers.
Like we let you upload images that are up to 5 megabytes each into your assets folder. But I don't think, we were actually talking about this yesterday. I don't think that Expo, Patrick, steer me here a little bit, but like I don't think Expo like minifies the images when it compiles the app. So it's just, if you put a 5 megabyte image in your app, it's going to load a 5 megabyte image, I think.
So here's where this gets tricky. If you upload the app, the image as an asset to Draftbit, we should, capital italicized should perhaps, minify those images for you when we build your PWA. I know for a fact that we do that, or we attempt to do that when we minify or we build PWAs. And Nick, actually not quite clear. I don't know if we released PWA, like actual real PWAs out into the wild yet, or if it's still in beta, only for certain users. But when we do that, I know because I watched them compile and compress on my own computer plenty of times while I was building it, that we'll do that. Now the caveat there, which is if you're downloading images from the network, it's a whole different story. We can't, it's just impossible for us to do much about that. So if you're like Nick's shoe app is a great example. Nick has a great app he built with doing some shoe shopping, and those images come from the internet. And I think they're pretty optimized, but if they weren't, the problem would be that you're still downloading them from the internet. They're still big files, and we can't, unfortunately, really do much about that. What you would have to do on your end is provide different images that you would need. So maybe you had a Zoom image that would be something that comes from the network that would be big and people would be willing to wait for. And then you'd have to have a separate set of images that are preview images that are small and download quickly.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Of course, the problem with having engineer on the stream is we get too detailed. So, all right. So I think I've read through this. It doesn't actually look too bad. So we're going to try, and I think this is a great way to play around with some things too. Expo is usually great about having great little code snippets for location or for really any of their APIs. And so I'm just going to copy what they have as an example, and we're just going to see what happens. So let me go in here, and I'll try to read how I would see what they're trying to do. Although, if you're not, and I'm going to delete the code that I had written before or comment it out as it's known, so that it doesn't have an effect on the app. And so, this isn't a bad way to get started with snippets, that you can find a good snippet online. And especially with Expo, they tend to write some pretty good ones for you. So looking through here, I can see they have their own variable called location and a different variable called error messages. Now, this is using React APIs to store state, which is something that you would have seen if you were paying close attention to the code that I was showing earlier. And then some more React APIs, and I'm adding these just so this works as I skim the other way. And you know what? I bet if I would have copied all of their code, so see, I only copied the contents of the component code. If I would have copied this line from them, this would have all worked. So if you're not too familiar with code, I'd really suggest copying the whole thing from the Expo example. Great. So, and actually, you know what? Let's practice what I preach. And I'm just going to do this. That way I don't have to manually read these lines in front of you. Great. So this should work just fine. And I'm going to change the name of this back to my location. And I'm going to get rid of this default. But okay, great. So this is Expo's example, and you know what? I'm not even going to read it this closely. Actually, I'm going to delete these styles because we don't have any styles in this app yet, or in this custom component yet, code component yet. But we're just going to see what happens. Oh, interesting. So it's telling us it's waiting. And you guys, can you guys see this? You guys can't. Can you see my my locations being requested? Shoot.
What?
Let me share my whole desktop because I think that there's a limitation here, and I want you guys to see this because this is really cool. So I'm going to go the entire screen, and I'm going to apologize in advance because this is a big computer monitor. But can you guys see the build.stagingbit.com is accessing my location?
Oh,
that's my location.
Really interesting.
Awesome. So that's cool because if you see the app on Snack here is waiting, right? So it's waiting for something. Let's see if this will do it. Firefox would like to use my current location.
Oh my God.
Let's see what comes up. I may have to refresh it because sometimes the timing of these things matters.
Yeah.
The first time you give permission, and if you're an iOS user out there, or not iOS, but if you're and I'm going to go back to the app here, but if you're a Mac OS user, I'm sure you're very familiar with the green apps, all sorts of permissions constantly. It seems to be my only job sometimes. Back to Draftbit Builder. All right. So I'm just going to refresh this and see. So I'm going to go back to the code component here. And just to show you kind of what's going on behind the scenes, since this is probably pretty similar. See, they have their waiting text right here, and they're saying if there's an error, text should be the error. If there's a location, text should be the location. And the default text, right, is waiting. So it'll show waiting. If there's an error, show the error. If there's a location, it'll show the location. So just to make sure, and just to trigger some updates, we'll just throw Nick's name in there just to. And what this does is it kicks off the whole process again. Oh, hey, look at that!
Whoa.
Great. So let me go do some things to help us format that a little bit better. Maybe we can see it all. Actually, hold on. So I'm going to this is something I can tell might be difficult for other people, but what you can see in here is there is a longitude, what's called a key. And I'm going to guess there's one called latitude too. And I'm just going to have the app show only those two things because that's kind of really valuable information if you're looking for location. So let me go back here. And so what's happening now is it's stringifying this whole object called location. What I'm going to do is have it stringify just a piece of it. Or actually, I'm going to do something even simpler. I'm going to have it just show me some message that I want. So this is called a template string in JavaScript. You can go look up plenty of examples on how to do those. They start with these what's called the grave accent. Grave, I'm not even pronouncing that correctly. And you put a $sign on these little brackets, and you can put variables into strings. So longitude. And please let me know if I spelled these right. I'm an engineer for a reason. And so this is just static string. So what's happening here, just as another overview, this is always going to show up, and then this will only show up if there is a value called longitude on the location object. I'm pretty sure it is, but we might mess up here. So I'm going to save that. I messed up. All right, so let's go back and figure this out. I'm actually going to do, this is useful.
I think it's location.codes.longitude.
Oh, thank you so much. Codes?
Coordinates codes. COORDS. Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Coming in with the assist.
Nice.
All right, so we don't have to do that. Heyo.
Heyo.
So that's really cool. One of the cool things I was not expecting to kind of show you guys today was for this to work through the browser. So that's kind of interesting. This means that it should work in your compiled PWAs, and it should work. It uses the browser API to request your location rather than the phone's API, which is awesome.
What's going to happen when we this might take longer than we have, but like if we publish this to a PWA, I'm curious what the mobile device request location permissions look like.
Yeah. So that's actually interesting. So in Draftbit, and let me show you this because this is a good example. I know some things about Snack that you guys may not know in Expo, which is the good people at Expo have a lot of advanced things built in to handle permissions if you're using the Snack system that you'll have to handle yourself if you want to publish an app on Draftbit. So as Nick mentioned, permissions are necessary. And there's actually, if you were to read this section of the documentation in depth, you'll see the details here. But it looks like it just wants a bunch of location permissions. And you can do that in a Draftbit app by going to the settings and the advanced settings. And you'll see this permissions list down here. So we're just going to give them all the permissions. Anything that says location, I'm going to give it to it. That looks like it. And you might see different Expo APIs requesting you to make sure you do these, requests for these different permissions. Save, cool. So that's just a quick show to how to grant those things manually, and we'll handle everything from there in the Draftbit end. Nick, you said you wanted to see what the location request looks like on the mobile app. I think I can do that really quick if we have time.
Yeah, I'd actually be curious. I guess it's two things. One is maybe if you can start the publishing process. It may not publish before we have to finish off and we can move it over. Sure. I'd be curious to see what the browser experience is like on my device or on any mobile device, but then also maybe the shared project. I'd love to see it run on an iOS or an Android app.
Yeah, I might just do the lazy way here. So I'm going to open up my Expo app. Feel free to play along at home because you can see that QR code yourself.
Oh, look at that. Expo Go is requesting your location. I don't know if you can see that at home.
Yep, look at that. And I wonder if they match. Oh, wow. Firefox knows where I live to a remarkable degree of accuracy. I should probably not be showing that advanced of a longitude and latitude on a public stream, but if you want to come by in my apartment and say hi, talk about Draftbit.
I mean, the people are going to come to your apartment with all the good work and not to throw eggs at you.
Yeah.
You're right, though. It's like a timing thing because my app says waiting for. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Mine came up pretty quick, so sometimes it takes a while for the GPS to resolve your location. I'm sure I probably already have. Yeah, I already have my application. I already have location enabled on Android, so it tends to be pretty fast. I know Android's got some special APIs in there too. Google snooping on me knows where my Wi-Fi network is, so I'm sure it sees that I'm connected to the Wi-Fi network and knows instantly where I am. So yeah, that's a good example of how you can go and pick out an API over on Expo. There's a whole bunch more of them you have to play around with. Copy some example code and see it show up.
So you can pass the application into a map component. It's also a custom code component.
Yeah.
Show your location on a map and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe next week we'll go down that route. But that shouldn't be too bad.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. All right, so I'm just going to wrap it here. Patrick, thank you so much. This was really fun to see this. As a reminder, if you are thinking you want to get access to this feature, it is to Draftbit users yet, and it won't be for a little bit, but if you want to be a beta tester or you want to help us develop this feature, let us know either by emailing help@draftbit.com or just messaging us in your Builder chat window. Yeah, thanks so much, Patrick, not just for building it, but also for walking us through it. We're going to sign off for now, but if you have any questions, please reach out to us, and we'll get you going.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.